What if I told you that the very first civilization didn't just give us the wheel, but they also wrote down a history of humanity that's been, well, pretty much erased? Today, we're diving deep into the story hidden inside the ancient Sumerian tablets. All right, let's just jump right in. Think about the Sumerians. These are the people from modern-day Iraq who basically laid the groundwork for, well, everything. So many things we use every single day came from them. And yet, when you open a history book, they're barely a footnote. It just doesn't add up, right? So you have to ask, why? Why is history's first great civilization so often ignored? I mean, just look at this list. The calendar on your wall, the way we measure time in circles, sailboats, the wheel, and oh yeah, the first written language. These aren't small things, they're absolutely monumental. We take all their inventions as fact, no questions asked. But the minute we look at the history they wrote about themselves, suddenly it's all just mythology. And that's the mystery, isn't it? What if that's not an accident? Well, the answer to that question, it might just be etched into thousands of clay tablets they left behind. Let's dig into the discovery that really started it all. So picture this. It's 1849. A British archaeologist is digging around in what's left of ancient Sumer, and he finds something incredible. 14 specific clay tablets. Now, these things are ancient. We're talking 24th century BCE. Some of the oldest written records we've ever found. And the story they tell, it's absolutely reality-bending. These tablets introduce us to a group of beings they called the Anunnaki. And get this, the name itself is basically a job description. It translates to those who from heaven to earth came. Right there, that's the claim that flips the whole script. And this is where things get really wild. According to these tablets, our creation wasn't some magical act by a single all-powerful God. No, they describe it as a scientific process, a procedure carried out by a group of visitors from another world. Okay, so who were these visitors, and what on earth did they want here? Well, the tablets lay out a surprisingly detailed story, and it all starts with a huge crisis back on their home planet. The story goes that the Anunnaki landed here almost 500,000 years ago. Think about that time frame. They supposedly came from a planet called Nibiru, a planet in our own solar system that we've never found, one with this huge 3,600-year orbit. And their mission, the reason they traveled all that way, was simple. They were here for gold. But why gold? What was so special about it? According to the tablets, their home planet's atmosphere was literally falling apart, and their only solution, their Hail Mary, was to grind gold into fine dust, nanoparticles, and spray it into their sky to patch their ozone and block radiation. And Earth, it turns out, was a gold mine. And here's a crazy little parallel for you. NASA, today, uses gold foil for the exact same reason, to shield its spacecraft from radiation. Kind of makes you think, right? Now, mining an entire planet? That's tough, backbreaking work. And the Anunnaki's original workforce eventually had enough. They hit a breaking point. This led their leaders to a pretty radical and, let's face it, terrifying solution. If you can't find the workers you need, why not just make them? So here's how the story goes. The Anunnaki had this servant race called the Igigi, doing all the hard labor in the gold mines. But after centuries of this grueling work, the Igigi finally rebelled. Total work stoppage. So now the Anunnaki have a huge problem. No workers. What do? Well, they decide to get creative. They took the primitive hominids already living on Earth and merged their DNA with Anunnaki genes. And the result of this genetic experiment? The tablets say it was us, Homo sapiens, a new worker race, smart enough to do complex jobs, but designed to be subservient. And this is where the language gets really interesting, because it shows you the power dynamic. The tablets say the first successful human was named Adamu, a name that should sound pretty familiar, right? But even more revealing is how they redefine a word we all know, worship. For the Sumerians, the original meaning wasn't about prayer or praise. It literally meant to work for. Humanity was engineered with a job description from day one, to toil for their gods in the gold mines. And for a while, this system actually worked. But humanity, we were growing, evolving. We were becoming harder and harder to control. The Anunnaki leadership started to see their creation as a potential threat, and they knew a massive cosmic event was coming, one that could be the perfect opportunity for a planetary reset. There's this quote from an ancient text that really sets the scene. It talks about the destroyer and how it will return. See, every 3,600 years, Nibiru's orbit would swing it back through our part of the solar system, close enough to cause absolute gravitational chaos on Earth. The Sumerians didn't call it Nibiru in this context, they called it the Destroyer. So you've got this perfect storm brewing. First, after the Anunnaki engineered humans to be able to reproduce, our population just exploded. Then you had some Anunnaki actually interbreeding with humans, creating these hybrids, what other texts call the Nephilim or giants. The big boss, a leader named Anu, starts to get nervous. He's losing control, and he sees Nibiru's next pass-by not as a threat, but as an opportunity. The plan was chillingly simple. The Anunnaki leadership knew that Nibiru's gravitational pull was going to trigger a monster flood, a world ender, and their decision was to just let it happen. Hop in their ships, get a nice view from orbit, and let the disaster wipe their little experiment clean off the planet. Just erase us. The tablets paint this absolutely terrifying picture of what happened. Day turned to darkness. A wall of black cloud rose from the horizon. They see Nibiru's passage caused the Antarctic ice sheet to just collapse, unleashing a global tsunami. But, and this is a huge but, the story says one of the Anunnaki defied the others. He secretly went to a human named Ziusudra and told him to build a great boat to survive with the chosen few. Sound familiar? Many believe that Ziusudra is the original Noah. So humanity survived, but only by a thread. After the waters receded, the Anunnaki who were left put a whole new system of control in place. And this is the creepy part. You can still see the echoes of that system all around us today. And this right here is how the tablets explain that Sumerian problem we talked about at the beginning. You know, how this incredibly advanced civilization just pops into existence out of thin air. The tablets say it wasn't a mystery at all. It was a gift. The Anunnaki basically handed the survivors a pre-packaged civilization, teaching them everything from scratch. And this was the key to their new management style. Instead of ruling us directly, they set up the system of monarchy. They appointed human kings to be their middlemen, to rule for them. And to make it stick, these royal bloodlines were said to have Anunnaki genes mixed in, giving them the divine right to rule. The tablets basically claim this is the origin story for why royalty and elites have always been so obsessed with blood purity. It was all about maintaining their indirect control. So the tablets lay out this epic story, from the very beginning all the way to the dawn of our current age. But they don't just stop there. They leave us with a deeply unsettling warning. That 3,600-year orbit, it's a cosmic clock. And if you do the math based on their timeline, that clock is getting ready to chime again. Now, to be clear, mainstream archaeology sees these stories as incredibly powerful myths. You know, complex metaphors about gods and nature. They don't see them as literal history. But the thing is, the Sumerians wrote them down as history. So, after hearing their side of the story, what do you think? Are these tablets a forgotten chapter of human history that's been deliberately buried? Or are they just the greatest, most elaborate fantasy story ever written? The choice, as always, is yours.